So for many of you, you're in categories where you have a big competitor, the large strategic. They have 10 times your budget, 10 times your staffing, and 10 times your distribution. You gain a facing and you turn around and they've got a whole end cap and they're just mocking you from their end cap. So it can feel at times insurmountable. But today, we're gonna let you in on some secrets from a spy, a big company defector. And he's here today to explain what lessons you can pull from the big company playbook and where you as an emerging brand have an advantage over these competitors. To share his insights, please welcome Matt Gase, the CEO of Lantana Hummus.
And there it is. Well, I'm that middle-aged guy that's crashing the conference here, and I'm just going to own it. Let me give you a little bit of background because it provides context in terms of the topic. I was born into big food. My grandparents started a regional bakery in Michigan, licensed a national brand. My dad ran that company. My childhood was gluten and carbs. When I graduated from college, I thought I would double down on gluten and carbs and join Continental Baking Company and add a little bit of sugar while I was at it. Wonderful experience for me, though. I was able to call on buyers and launch local products, great training grounds. And then it was acquired by a company called Ralston Purina. Company no more, but it was quite big in its day. Cereals, beech nut baby food, pet food. They had Eveready Energizer battery company. And it was there I learned some interesting insights in terms of big food. And I'm going to share a story with you in a second. Following that, I joined Conagra Foods. So you can see I spent much of my career in better-for-you, healthy foods. Let me share a bit of a story that really had an impact on me. I was in St. Louis. Much of Purina's international business was underdeveloped, especially in Asia, and I got the nod to move to Singapore or move to Southeast Asia and figure out where to play and how to win. And when I got there, looking at the various markets, I thought, I've got data. Ralston Purina provided wonderful data, Euromonitor, data monitor. There's an emerging pet ownership in Singapore. I had a brand, Purina, that essentially defined pet food. I had the number one brand, dog chow. I had a supply chain that was the best in the business. I had the lowest costs. And I had a company that was providing me a very sizable marketing budget to grow it. So I found a closed-up Eveready factory, swept off the floor, put up a card table, called at my office, hired a local guy, went to the leading supermarket chain in Singapore and said, there's a growing, emerging pet food industry here. People must be making their pet food at home, primarily dogs, and I'd like to sell you Purina dog chow. Almost immediately, I got 8-foot sets in all of the chains, in all of the stores, and went back to my office and stared at my income statement, just waiting for the money to roll in. After a couple weeks, I thought either they're really good at restocking shelves or I'm not selling much. And within a month, I got a phone call from the major buyer, and he said, hey, you've got weevils. Now, if you don't know what weevils are, look them up, but they're little insects that feed off of grain-based foods. So I had to essentially remove dog chow from the shelves. A complete fail. I did what most people would do. I went with some buddies to a local bar, had some Tiger beers, and said, geez, how did I so screw up? And I asked, do you have any friends that have pets, specifically puppies? And they did. And so I actually visited with a number of families. Now in Singapore, the typical, you live in a high-rise. It's about 1,000 square foot. The kitchens are not air conditioned, so the living space is even smaller. So when I started visiting these families, I noticed really small dogs. And I started asking, do you make the pet food at home? And they said, no. Here's what we have. And I said, how much do you pay for that? And it turned out that they were paying about 3 times per pound than what I was charging for my dog chow. So, and then I said, where do you buy it? They said, well, we bought it from a breeder. And the breeder said, listen, if you don't feed this food, your dog's probably going to die. And you can only buy it from my place. And I'm paraphrasing, but it's a pretty strong selling approach. I visited, nearly every breeder, every vet, and then I hopped on a plane and I flew to Denver. If you've ever been outside of Denver, you'll see a big pet food plant. It's a wonderful bouquet and odor. And went into a big conference room with a bunch of ordinary ops guys and said, all right, we got a big opportunity. Well, maybe not big. Actually, it's rather small, but in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be big, and here's what I need. Your kibble's too big. Your kibble's made for the American dog. I need a small kibble because everybody has small dogs because they live in small, confined places. I need a kibble where you remove much of the corn and the grain and the wheat and put in more fresh tissue. Because these people, where they live, they have a little grass area. They don't want a whole lot coming out of that pet. I need this small nutrient-dense kibble in a 1.5 kilo bag. My 5 pound is really 2.2 kilos. I was not able to compete with that. And I need that in an airtight bag rather than the lunch bag that Purina had at the time, which allowed weevils to get in and turn it into a weevil hotel. And I'm probably going to have to change the name. Name's just not working. I was almost escorted out of the plant. And realized then and there that yes, there are tremendous advantages to big food, but there are vulnerabilities as well. And how can you exploit that? So I embraced small food. 5 years at Stubb's and now 3 years at Lantana Hummus. Best decision I've ever made. I can't tell you the network of colleagues or ex-colleagues from Big Food that call me and say, Gase, how can we move small? So let me walk you through 2 and give you some insights that I've leveraged during my time at Stubb's and now at my time at Lantana. Stubb's was founded in 1992. I joined in 2010. A great brand, more regional, legendary Texas barbecue. It wasn't making money. Great bones though, wonderful, wonderful bones. But as you heard Kara say, inadequate systems. You couldn't read just how the business was going. There was no data, and the company was still owned by the founders. The culture was very friends and family, and had been that way for some time. And we were competing in a category that was dominated by big food brands, and a category that wasn't growing. It was flat. So to grow, we'd have to take share away from one of these guys here. And Clorox, KC Masterpiece, Ken's, Sweet BBB, Ray's, all solid, great companies and tough competitors. So what did we do? First, I focused on the team. And this was dicey because the founders were on the board and they had friends and they had relationships. And at the same time, you have these strong ties of folks. You want to have the best possible people working for you. And as you grow, sometimes, folks just don't have maybe what it takes to get to the next level. So it was over a period of 5 years. I ended up with about the same number of people, but was able to bring in folks from small, agile, fast-moving companies to folks that worked at big companies. And I know there's a stigma, and I mean, I'm wearing it right now in terms of big food, but there's talent in big food. You get fantastic training, you get a fantastic experience, you're exposed to so many things. So, bringing people in from some of these companies helps you better compete because you're competing against, essentially, their former company. I shared with you that Purina story. It's slow. The competitors, big food, they're catching on now, but certainly at Stubbs, we were absolutely determined to be the first out there with a clean label. We looked at assortment, and here's another area that I'd really recommend, and I know a lot of you do, but it's data. It's understanding the category, and that means bucking up for Nielsen or Spins or IRI. My VP of marketing, who came from Clorox, KC Masterpiece, said, gee, our original's doing great, our spicy's doing great, our sweet stuff's doing great, but 10% of the category is driving 30% of the growth, and that's called sweet and spicy, which we didn't have. And by rounding out our portfolio, really gave us significant revenue growth, and that was just analytics. That's just mining the data. Distribution. This is another sort of reason why I think you really want to buck up and get data. Within the barbecue sauce category at the time, Kraft was number one. Over those 5 years, Sweet Baby Ray's became the giant, very strong. You started to see a monthly data that certain brands started to fall, double-digit decline. And when you see that within some of these portfolio companies, you have an opportunity there. And let me just sort of take a little sidebar. When I was at Purina, a buddy of mine in a cafeteria, he met me at a cafeteria, he came in white as a ghost, and he said, I can't believe it. I just got assigned to Moist and Meaty. And we're like, dude, we're so sorry. Why? Because Moist and Meaty was a brand in decline. He had to harvest that brand. He had no money to grow it. The best he would get would be, hey, good job, John, for not declining in double digits. You declined in high single digits. There are a lot of brands out there. You see them. Big brands that are no longer the darling of that portfolio company. They're not getting the money. They're losing distribution, and you can see that. And when you have that category review, that's where you gain your share. I would never, and I never did, go after Sweet Baby Ray's. That have crushed us. But going after some of these brands that were no longer important to that portco is where we went. Branding. You guys all do a fantastic job branding. I'm going to put this up just as a way to say, sometimes you could be a little close if you're a founder. Listen to people. Talk to people. When I got there at Stubbs, the feedback we heard from consumers is Stubbs is a real guy. Well, the branding, there was a composite drawing of C.B. Stubblefield. The founders didn't want to put a picture of him on the label because he was dead. And we're like, well, let's celebrate. Yeah, so what if he's dead? He's a real guy. He's the DNA of the brand. His grandsons are working for the company. Let's put stories on the label. Let's make our consumers realize this isn't some big company, phony baloney, Rufus Teague. This is C.B. Stubblefield. And it took some doing because our founders were just so close to Stubbs. And then expansion. Once our barbecue sauce was rock solid, we moved quickly to adjacencies. We moved to rubs, which was becoming the new sort of barbecue sauce. We refreshed our marinades. We introduced a product that could behave like a condiment for barbecue. And then cooking sauces, just bringing barbecue from the backyard into the kitchen for those folks in Michigan and Wisconsin where you just can't barbecue in the winter, putting a rub packet marinade packet and a barbecue sauce packet in like a little briquette bag. Go get yourself a pork tenderloin, put the rub on it, put it in a slow cooker with the cooking sauce, shred it, layer some finishing sauce on it, and you have your pulled pork sliders. We had a good run at Stubb's. In 29, we were number 9, and when we sold the company in 2015 to McCormick, you can see who we targeted. Sweet Baby Ray's and ourselves were really the only 2 brands that grew in that time frame. So let me take you to where I'm at today, and I'm having a riot. Company Lantana wasn't really founded as Lantana. It was founded in 2011 by 3 very, very smart founders who said, you know, why does hummus have to be chickpea? Why does hummus have to be a sea of beige? Why does it have to be Mediterranean? Why can't we have a hummus that celebrates other legumes, and to have an edamame hummus or a black bean hummus or a yellow lentil hummus? And who says we can't add other products, vegetables into this? And built a heck of a company, but it had a tough name: Eat Well, Embrace Life. And in 2015, as I was rolling off McCormick, throughout my career, I've gotten to know a whole lot of private equity, investment bankers, all sorts of different folks in the business, and was determined that if I wanted, I was just determined to work with VMG. So I reached out to them in 2015 at the same time that they were looking at Lantana Hummus, and couldn't be more excited. In my opinion, I know Kara's here. I'm not saying this. If Kara wasn't here, I would still say this. They're to me the best in the business. They provide such great resources and expertise. They're true partners in growing this business. So we started out in early 2015, and same thing. In my category, it's dominated by Big Food. PepsiCo and Strauss as a joint venture, and they own Sabra. And then you have Nestle, which is Tribe, Campbell and Kraft, which is Athenos, all play in the category. And we followed the same sort of script, but different this time. Because I had a clean slate and working with VMG, we were able to fill the team. You know, we didn't have a team. There was the 3 founders. They managed the business, virtually. So, where did I go? I went to the category. I got category expertise. I went to the competitor, and went to small. Went to folks like Buy that had great activation and brought those folks on the team. Here, it was a totally different branding experience. And again, it's sort of like you're so close to it. Listen to what other folks had to say. This was tough for our founders. There you see Eat Well, Embrace Life. Try searching Eat Well and find hummus. You're not. Try searching Embrace Life and find hummus. You're certainly not going to find hummus when you embrace life. Working closely with our partner VMG, we went through a very challenging exercise. We changed our name. We just changed our name. The equity was in the striped lid. Aided, unaided awareness on the name, 0. Lots of awareness on the striped lid. So went through quite an exercise, landed with Lantana, and it's as if we didn't miss a beat. Consumers were like, I didn't know this was called Lantana. They were reaching for the striped lid. Assortment, same thing. VP of Marketing came from Sabra, and she said, my goodness, where's your spicy? Where's your garlic? And yet we still are that company, the most innovative company in the space, in my humble opinion, and launched products such as cauliflower and hatch chili. And that's the sort of stuff that's hard for the big companies to do. They can't be as nimble and as agile as we can. Their supply chains like Niagara Falls of chickpea. Just, it's the same hummus with different toppings. Our scale allows us to be nimble and swift and launch new products. Distribution, very similar in the sense that, know who to go after. There's no way I'm going to take on Sabra. They absolutely crush us. But there's some moist and meaties in here. You got to find those moist and meaties, and you find them again when you just data. You're not going to see it when you walk the store, but you're going to see it when you look in data. And similar story here. You all start with clean label. We didn't have a clean label. We went hard after it, and we know that some of the big companies, it's going to take them a long time before they take potassium sorbate out of their hummus, because it's hard. It's hard work to do. And lastly, seek out extension opportunities. We came up with a grab and go, single serve. Because of our ability to move quickly, we started launching seasonal items. And I'm really excited about this. Our current launch, fruit hummus, it's as dessert hummus has created a new eating occasion. We've developed a line. It's delicious, first and foremost, but it's a day part. It allows a non-dairy alternative to cream cheese for a bagel or a waffle or an afternoon snack. So, and again, many of these of our competitors in the space, just by nature of the brand. I mean, if you're a brand that's defined by being Mediterranean, it's awfully hard to come up with a product that is far afield from your brand DNA. And we've been on a good run. In 2015, Eat Well / Lantana was 6th, and we've climbed up the rank there, and again, we knew who to go after. So, I'll leave you with sort of 3 takeaways, I think themes as you've seen throughout this presentation. The team, people. Prioritize expertise. Sometimes those are hard decisions you have to make, because the folks that you brought in early, you might need to you might need to make some changes, and that's really hard. I totally get it, but I just can't emphasize enough how important great people are to have around you. Don't drink your own Kool-Aid. Learn from your consumers and outside perspectives. The fact that this industry here, this emerging industry, has these sorts of conferences. I mean, that would never happen in big food. I mean, we'd be at a trade show, and the craft guys would be there, and the ConAgra guys would be there, and we'd be, staring at each other. We wouldn't be having happy hours. If you did, they'd reckon that you're looking for a new job, and then they'd put you on the moist and meaty desk. So, really, if you have questions, you can talk to every one of you, or I just love how this community is quid pro quo and is so free to give in advice and ideas. And then lastly, embrace those tools that make you smarter, whether it's an ERP system that gives you better visibility to your business, or consumption data that's telling you what your category is doing and what your competitors are doing. And that's it. Thank you very much.
We're gonna take a quick question on the sofa. Yeah.
Uh-oh. I wasn't prepared for this.
You're gonna get stuck on moist and meaty if you answer it wrong.
I know. I thought I was home free.
So something that came up is, does going after these lesser brands or the lower brands, does that eventually limit your upside at the end? Like, why not take on the big guys?
Well, so if you have, as Kara said, an onlyness, you don't need to take on the big guy, because you're unique and distinct, hopefully, from the big guy. Otherwise, you wouldn't be relevant, right? So if you're going to take on the big guy, you're going to get their attention. Their focus right now, Sabra, is totally focused on just growing their business, and to say, hey, I've got these new 4 fruit flavors. I want to get on shelf. For me or my sales team to convince a buyer to take out Sabra's taco SKU versus going after Athenos, which has been, in deep decline. You're just better off establishing your shelf, your position on shelf. It's a lot easier to do than taking on the beast.
So it seems like it's about knowing for the people you're talking to where their pain points are as well. For the buyer, or category manager, they want brands that will help bring in revenue to their category.
Oh, for sure. And they don't. The deli buyer has cheese and sauerkrauts and all sorts of stuff and dips. And so they're not paying that close attention to what's happening. And it's incumbent upon people here, to us, to say, just FYI, I just want to point out that here's this brand X, and they've been double-digit decline for 6 months. And by the way, they just got kicked out of Publix. That just has, it's like, thank you very much. I didn't realize that. Because they're not, as much as you think that they're looking at this deeply every day, they've got hundreds of different products versus you just, you have your own.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your focus and your own personal journey.
Thank you.
Great.